Today, we're going to be discussing plot. And plot is one of the most important elements of literature. That's the first one we'll be dealing with in this course. I want to remind you that I uploaded the PDF presentation to College One's LMS. And for your reading and viewing pleasure, you can find the PowerPoint in my website. There's a link at the LMS. Let's go into plot. And plot is a structured format where conflict is presented. Every story has something called conflict. What is conflict? Conflict is synonymous with struggling, with struggles. It is synonymous with problems. Everybody has conflict. It is an intrinsic part of life. And in literature, conflict is the fuel of every story. You know that you need gasoline to be able to propel your car. You need kerosene in order to propel your jet. You need diesel in order to propel your truck. You need conflict to propel a story. A story cannot move if it does not have conflict. So, all fiction, all stories are based on this thing that we call conflict. And this conflict is going to be presented in a very structured way, in a format that we're going to call plot. The structure also is also known as the dramatic structure. We spoke about that in the cinematography course last year. Dramatic structure is the same thing as plot in literature. Let's give you a definition of plot, our working definition, the one that we're going to be using in the lesson, in the course, and you're going to be seeing popping up in a test, is the plot is the sequence of events that involve characters in conflict. You will notice that in this definition, we're presenting plot as sequential, which means that it has an order, and that this order is um, depends on elements that were previously established. There's an order. In order for something to happen, something must have happened before that. And who is involved in this plot? The characters are involved in it, and they find themselves in conflict. Another way of presenting this is that stories are about a problem that needs to be solved, and that problem is presented in a systematic, sequential way that we call plot. Every story is about a problem, and that problem has to be solved. If you have an itch, well, you have to scratch it, right? If you have any interest in becoming a member of the basketball team, you have to go to trials, right? That's a conflict right there. If there's a zombie apocalypse, well, you better hustle in order to survive. And there's a variety of conflict. Conflict can come from a different variety of sources. Um, but usually, we can split conflict into two types. We have something called internal conflict, where the problem, the source of the problems, come from inside the character himself or herself. An example would be a phobia. Let's say that you're shy, you're afraid of talking to people, and let's say that you see a boy or a girl that you like, and you want to invite them for, I don't know, a date or something, but you don't dare. You want to, but you don't dare because you have fear. Do you have a problem? Is that a problem? Yes, it is a problem. It's a problem. because it's keeping you. You have something that is keeping you from getting something you want. That's what conflict is. Conflict is a struggle. Conflict can also be external. I mean that the source of the problem or the conflict comes from the outside. It can come from another person, like a bully wants to smash your face, or a hurricane is coming, and you still have a blue tarp on your roof. They haven't fixed your roof yet since Maria. Would that be a problem? What do you say? Not everybody at once, please. That's a problem, right? So that's what conflict is. That's what conflict encompasses. So in real life, conflicts suck. Nobody wants conflict, right? We like our lives to be like nice and quiet, with tranquility. But in a story, if you like a good story, you cannot have a good story without conflict. They are the fuel. They are what feed a story. And the bigger the conflict, the more interesting the story is. Now, let's talk about plot. Plot has certain elements. And as we said, they are sequential. That means that these elements present themselves before the other one can appear on the scene. The first element of plot is what we call introduction or exposition. Then that is followed by something that we're going to call complication or raising action. And that's going to end or plateau or peak at something that we're going to call the climax. And then we have something called a denouement or falling action that I didn't show there because not every story has one. Most do. I don't know why I didn't put it there. The denouement or falling action. And then we have a resolution or outcome at the end of the story. Let's discuss each one of them. So far, does anybody have any question? Let's begin then with what we call the introduction or exposition. Let me ask you a question. Has this ever happened to you? Let me present a scenario. You went to the theater because you wanted to see a movie, but you got there late. You got there like 10, 15 minutes late. So you sat there, you're watching the movie, and there are some things that are not like clear. There are some things that in the back of your mind are not making much sense. And you feel a little bit uncomfortable because there's something that you think in the back of your mind you should be getting, but you're not getting. And you saw the movie and you enjoyed what you saw. And sometime later, they had it on Netflix or they had it on, I don't know, Disney Plus or wherever, or View on Demand, and you saw it from the beginning. And you went like, oh, now I get it. Now I know why this happened or this person said that or the other or whatnot. Now I get it. Because now you saw the beginning of the movie. So has that ever happened to you? Anyone? You can activate your microphones, guys. Has that happened to you? Uh-huh. Well, but that happens to a lot of people. Even if it hasn't happened to you, that happened to a lot of people. You know, um, they experience that. And what can we get from this? That beginnings are very important. That beginnings are essential. So in a plot, in the beginning of a plot, this part that we call exposition or introduction, we get information that is very important and very fundamental in order to understand a story. It's probably the most important element of a plot, the introduction. Because in the introduction, we are introduced to who? To the characters, particularly the main character, who is the one that had the responsibility of solving the conflict in the story. Remember that every story is about solving a problem, but not every character has to solve the problem. As a matter of fact, some characters create the problem. But the one that has to solve the problem, the one that has that weight on his or her shoulders, that's who we call the main character or protagonist. So in the introduction or exposition is where we see this person for the first time. So that's the who. We also have the what. What's the problem? What is the conflict or situation this person has to solve? And we also have the setting. which is the when and the where. Where is this and when is this happening? So that is presented at the beginning, and not getting that information can make you not understand the rest of the story if you arrive late. I mean, when you read a book, you start from the beginning. If you start like halfway through, you're not going to understand because you're missing all that information that is so essential and so important. So that will be the exposition or introduction. Then you have this problem that has been presented, but this problem is that needs to be solved. It's going to get worse before it gets better, and that's going to build up the tension in the reader or the viewer of a movie. That's what keeps us interested. This person is actively trying to solve the problem. However, for some reason, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Let's give you an example. How many of you, let me use the example of a movie. How many of you saw a movie called Avengers Infinity War? Anybody? Okay. And what's the conflict? What is the conflict? Anyone? It has to do with Thanos. What is he doing? There's this guy called Thanos. What is Thanos doing? Anyone? What is he doing? Throughout the movie, he's doing something. What is he doing? He's doing something that the Avengers. Uh, what? No, 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 no. No. From the beginning of the movie, what is he doing? Ms. Ortiz says that he's looking for stones. And that is correct. He's looking for some magical, powerful stones called the Infinity Stones, right? And that will give him godlike powers. Now, that guy having godlike powers is a problem because you know what he wanted to use that power for? To fix the universe. And he thinks that fixing the universe is by killing half of it. That's his idea of fixing things. So let's kill half of every living thing, and things are better. So that's a horrific, horrific idea. But from the get go, he's getting these stones, and the Avengers are trying to do what? Stop him. And at the beginning he has one that makes him very powerful. But if he gets another one, he'll be twice as powerful. If he gets another one, he'll be even more powerful. So they got to stop the guy. So they're actively trying to stop him, but they can't. He keeps on collecting them. So what happens to the viewer? Well, tension increases and your interest because at the beginning things were bad and now they are worse. What you're thinking is, and now how are they going to fix this? If they couldn't stop him from getting the first one and he was so powerful, how in the world are they going to stop him if he has two or three or four or five? So that's what raising action is. The problem will always get worse before it gets better. And that is what keeps us interested. The conflict increases and it keeps on propelling the story. So, but eventually the conflict has to peak and stop somewhere because they keep on going forever. I mean, your level to deal with the level of anxiety that you have is not infinite, right? You can only take so much. So the story is going to peak at a moment that we call the climax. And the climax is a very specific moment in the story. The climax is not something that you should be describing in a paragraph. A climax is always stated in one sentence because it is very specific. It's a very specific moment. Most of you that are here in this virtual classroom took cinematography with me last year. And in that course, I showed a movie to you called Star Wars. What's the climax in Star Wars? Anybody? You all saw the movie, right? Because I showed it to you. Uh, I exactly. It's when the Death Star goes boom. That's the climax. Your level of stress, of anxiety ends when there. The conflict ends when there the problem is solved. The empire has the secret weapon that destroys world, and they destroyed it. Boom, the end. The climax is that. So you see, a climax is a very specific moment. What about in Avengers Endgame? What's the climax? Remember, the climax is that point where we know the outcome, and the hero will either succeed or fail. So, what is the climax in Endgame? And I'm sorry, in Infinity War. Yeah, but why? What the specific action? The snap when Thanos goes, because he has all the Infinity Stones and a gauntlet. Now he has this godlike power. Make a wish, snap, and half of the universe is dead. The heroes failed. The bad guy won. But still, that is the climax. That's the outcome of the entire story. So after the climax, we have a moment in the story that we call the denouement, because now we have, or falling action. Now we have like any loose end being tied up, or any necessary explanation uh, about why what happened. And that's going to give us a sense that the story is complete. And after the denouement, we have the conclusion of the outcome, or the resolution of the story. Stories have two types of end. The ending can either be open or closed. When it is closed, it gives us a sense of completion, like the end, and this ended, and there's no way the story needs to follow. No need, it doesn't need to continue. Everything is tied in a very satisfactory way. That's a closed ending. You get an answer for almost everything. Now, there's the open ending also. Some people don't find open endings very satisfying, but they can also be satisfying. Again, those of you that took cinematography with me last year, I showed another movie to you, and that movie was called A Quiet Place. What type of ending does The Quiet Place have? Is it closed or open? It's very open. Yeah, absolutely. It's open. Yeah, and I love the ending. Some people were like, "Wait a minute, why did it end?" Like I don't feel that it ended. I feel like this was going to go on. Yeah, and that happened because guess what? They were planning a sequel, and the sequel's been made. It just hasn't been released because of the pandemic. But the story continues, so it's a very open ending. I don't, I don't know about that, sir, but that's an open ending. Okay, so um, there is a way for you to present the plot of a story. Ms. Arroyo, I'm going to need you to thank you. Disactivate your phone, your microphone, because there's a rooster there that's very noisy. Thank you. Um, yes, madam. Okay, yeah, but we don't need the rooster distracting us, right? Thank you. Okay, so I was talking about something called a plot map, what you're seeing here, and you can show the main parts of a narrative of a story with that. That is the structure of any story. This is what we call the narrative structure, or the dramatic structure of a story. Stories have a shape. What is the shape of a story? That's the shape of a story. It begins with the exposition or introduction in the bottom. And then you will notice how it raises up. That's a raising action. Raising action can be probably 60 or 70% of the story. And then it's going to peak at the climax. And once it peaks, it will fall. To present the dramatic structure of any story, you will be using this tool, this type of map. You will have a homework today. And here's what I want you to do. You're going to be using a plot map to give me the structure of a favorite movie of yours or a favorite book of yours. Any book or any movie that you've seen, you're going to be drawing one plot map for that story or movie, whatever you choose. It is important in a plot map to be very brief. You are very specific and to the point. You do not need to give details, okay? Because as we said, the dramatic structure is like the skeleton of the story. And skeletons are what? Skinny. They're not fat. So what do you write in the exposition? In the bottom there, you see the exposition. What goes there? Well, who's the main character? What's the problem they have? And when and where are they? That's it. You don't have to write anything else there. Rising action will probably have the most information, and that's the one that's rising up. And in that block, you're going to write, okay, here's how the problem gets worse, but you're going to be very, very, very brief, not more than one paragraph. If you're writing more than one paragraph, you're writing too much. But you should also be clear. And when I look at that, or anybody looks at it, they should have a clear idea what the story is in the simplest terms possible. Then in the climaxes, where you're going to write how we know the outcome, in the case of Star Wars, what you should write as a climax, the Death Star explodes. Notice that I use what? One simple and short sentence. And Avengers Infinity War. Thanos snaps the Infinity Gauntlet and kills half of the universe. One sentence. So the climax is supposed to be super short, and then the following action is whatever happens at the end, how the story finishes. If I were writing the following action of Avengers and Infinity War, what I would write there is Thanos goes to his home planet to enjoy his victory of having killed half the universe. That's it. I don't have to write anything else. And I'm telling you from now on that you can look forward to doing several of these in this collection, and you will find one of these to do in the test.